Hi, this is Eric Mailman. I like to go through a procedure to write programs using the PyCharm development environment and the guizero graphic library. So I've established a folder here for a project, and in that project I can put as many different programs as I want. To add a new one, I'm going to right-click on this and select New Python File. Make sure you're choosing Python File and not File at the top of this list. We're going to give this file a meaningful name. Why don't we just call this Start? And when we do that, we can see that PyCharm has built a start.py file and given us a place to write the code. First thing you're going to do is say from guizero import and an asterisk. And that means to include everything from the guizero library that it has in it. Next, we're going to put in 3 double quotes. And notice that PyCharm provides 3 more. The reason for this is that this area is used as a header for your program to put some easy to find information about it. So I suggest putting in here your name, class, section, a description, and then a date and maybe a version. Skip another line, and in the next section that we're going to add is for global constants. And those are things that are not changed in the program. In other words, they're constant. It's recommended that when we define global constants, we name them in uppercase, so it's obvious what they're being used for. Then we're going to list any of them that we have, and after that, we're going to list global variables. In contrast, those are going to be done in lowercase. And those are variables that are going to be shared among the functions in our program. There are actually rules about what we should make global and what we shouldn't, but that's a discussion for another time. Now we're going to start with our code, and we're going to make sure that when we write our code that it all exists within inside a function, an surrounding function. So let's make a note that says we're going to define the main function. Most people will call the main function main because that's pretty descriptive. And the way to do that is to use the Python keyword def for define, and then the name of the function, which we'll make main. Notice when we go to the next line that PyCharm has indented that line. And that's something that's required to make sure that everything that is part of that function has a line that's indented underneath it. And the indents must be consistent through that. So now that we're here, now we can get down to some business of defining the GUI window and its contents. I put that indent back in. First thing we need to define is a main container. To hold the widgets. This is how we do that. We must give this container a name. And since it's going to be the main application container, naming it APP is not a bad idea, but you can choose whatever you like. What we can't choose is we can't choose the function that we use to describe it. The function that we use to describe it or to build it is actually called APP. And we must provide APP with some information. Well, there are defaults that we can use, but typically we do want to just put some things in here. For instance, we want to give our window a title. And let's call this welcome window. And we probably also want to give this a size, so we want to specify a width. We'll make this 600 pixels and a height, which we can make 100. Let's throw in a background color. And I think tan is a nice color for the background. So within this window, some of what we might find in here, expect to find in here, is text. And there's two things that we can default for the entire window. We can default the text size to be something comfortable. We'll make it 20. And then the text color, which we'll make blue. Notice that blue is surrounded in single quotes because it's a string. What I want to do now is do something simple. I want to put in a fixed label widget. This is how I do that. I'm going to use text, which comes from guizero. And in the parentheses, you can see a pop-up that shows you all the things that you either have to or may want to put in here. What we have to do is we have to say, where is this? This is in the APP container or the main container. So that has to go in there. And the only other thing that you typically want to put in there is the content of the text, which will say, welcome to Python and guizero. Next thing we have to do is we actually have to display the main window. If you don't do this, you won't see anything. App.display. That's the end of the main function, at least I believe it is. And what we need to do now that we've get done defining it is we need to actually execute it. The way we do that is we refer to the function's name and parentheses. Sometimes when we execute a function, we pass things to it through the parentheses, but we don't have to. But regardless, we always need to have those parentheses. Now we want to go back and take a look at where anything that's marked in red, which nothing here is, a few things that are marked in gray. Like this says, PyCharm tells us it expected 2 lines after a class or a function. That's talking about these lines here. So that gets that to go away. And over here should be the same thing. Once we've done that, notice over here you get a green check mark and it says no problems found. This is very good news because this means that PyCharm has not found either any errors or any warnings in our code. And that's a good place to start. It does not say that this code is perfect, but it does say it's a good place to start. If this is the first time I've run this program, I need to right-click someplace in my area over here or on the tab and say that I want to run the program. Let's see what happens. Well, there's the program. And now I want to take a look and say, well, is this program what I was expecting? Well, let's see. The title is welcome. It is wider than it is high. The background is tan. And we have some relatively big blue text in there. And the text that we have in there says, welcome to Python and guizero. Notice that this program continues to run forever unless we stop it. And there are 2 ways of stopping it. The way you expect is the X over here in the window, or we can use the red square over here. So if you watch down here in this window, when we stop it, it says at that point that the program did finish. So that's it. That's the way of setting up programs. To review, we have an import over here from the guizero library. We have a header that has information that describes what things are for, what this program is for. You have a list of global constants in uppercase, global variables in lowercase, and please stay tuned to find out when you should or shouldn't be using these. There's some rules. Then we go and define everything inside of a main function. And this just helps keep things organized. So we begin it with a def statement. We then indent everything under it. And in this function, what we're going to do is we're going to build an application window, set some defaults, just build a text field, make sure, don't forget app.display, and then at the end, run it. So if you follow this guideline in setting up programs, then that will get you on a good start. Okay, and what we'll do next time is, with this as a starting point, we'll learn how sometimes it's easier to go back to a starting point that works and expand it rather than start again from a clean screen. So that will be next time. Hope this is helpful to you, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.